Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And tonight, we are talking Mr. Banks.
Woo!
That's right, folks. We are only a few short days away from The Incredibles 2 being released upon us, finally, after a long, grueling 14-year wait. But, Dragon, you know what we've had in the meantime to tide us over?
Yes, I do.
We've had a spectacular 2-disc collector's edition released in various forms and formats and all over the world. And this collector's DVD has basically included the same bonus features like through every incarnation. And folks, suffice to say, it's become kind of a classic running talking point of Dragon and I's conversations when it comes to DVD bonus features. So, I present to you, with that in mind, folks, I present to you the most niche podcast in the history of So You Want to Be an Imagineer, where Dragon and I are literally going to review every bonus feature on the Incredibles DVD.
Yeah, you'd expect, hey, Incredibles 2 coming out, they're going to cover the first movie. You'd be wrong. We're going to cover the first movie, but in the most literal sense possible.
God. So, Dragon, there's a lot to go over here. Let's just go ahead and start with Disc 1. I guess before we start, we can kind of give some history, right?
Yeah. Basically, our history with the DVD release, specifically the 2004 2-disc DVD release. I had the full screen. I think the one you have up here might be the widescreen. I had like the little slipcover thing. It's the same DVD. I'm just saying it's like a different box art. That's all. But yeah. So starts off.
Yeah, so I just remember loving this movie as a kid. You know, I was about 14 when it came out, so it really struck a chord with me. I remember the character of Violet especially really striking a chord with me at that age. And the bonus features on the DVD, this was when I was getting into stuff like The Simpsons commentaries and things of that nature. You know, like the Lord of the Rings extended edition bonus material and stuff like that. So I was all in on bonus features, Dragon, and I just remember... like to kind of sum up my experience with the DVD, Dragon, I watched a half-hour making of documentary. It's really, really solid. I think to myself, you know, like, well, that was really well put together. It had a lot of good Brad Bird-isms in there. But you know what? I think it could have used maybe another 15 minutes. And then what do I see, Dragon?
Way more than 15 minutes.
More making of. Just literally I love how simplistic it's like. It's not even supposed to be fancy. It's just like, oh, here, we know you want more, so here's more.
Because 27 minutes isn't enough.
So yeah, just that experience alone, just the discovering that there was more making of, that just kind of sums up everything. And of course, there's a lot of cool featurettes on here. There's one about Bud Lucky. There's a really cool one about Sarah Vowell. Of course, there's some really fun Easter eggs on here as well. And probably the most important stuff to get into is the top secret stuff, Dragon, that we'll be breaking down kind of in the middle of the podcast here.
Oh, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
All right. For me, so I've had a long history with, bonus features with Pixar. So, I mean, it always started with the... even before DVDs, you had it on VHS tape for the kids out there. So there were these like, kind of brick-shaped things called VHS tapes. And and inside, you have like a little cassette tape that you put in, you watch. And if you watch to the very end, like we wait for post-credit scenes now, if you're lucky, there would be a making-of feature, a bonus feature at the very end. And I had that for Toy Story, and that always captivated me. For me, the two features that always stuck out to me were... the original Toy Story and Peter Pan, because that was the first time.
Yeah, Peter Pan definitely stuck out to me.
Honestly, from what I can remember, Peter Pan was the first time I ever saw Walt Disney, what the guy looked like. So it was a big one for me. You're seeing him, Tinkerbell sprinkled with the fairy dust, and he flew, and that's why in Saving Mr. Banks, when they adapted that moment, I lost my my mind of like, oh my god, that's the movie from my childhood. Yes. So point is like I've always been in the bag, and I was so fascinated by, oh my god, I was such a indoctrinated for Toy Story at such an early age, and watching that, like, it always kind of stuck out to me. It was like kind of this weird kind of surreal moment of like it just felt really off because it promised like, hey, stay tuned, what's happening here, and again blew me away with features. And eventually, I kind of happened into Monsters Inc. on DVD, and when that was kind of given to me, I watched it, and they had this. Basically, this is when I learned that Pixar had a trend of having very excellent DVD releases and having the number of features, and essentially they retroactively fixed this. But now that every movie has commentary, they had to go back and fix the fact that Ratatouille and Cars didn't have commentary because they were being released during the whole big Disney Pixar merger. So they did fix that though. So Pixar historically has had excellent DVD releases. Historically, so Monsters Inc. was basically my insight into Pixar because that had like famously when Monsters Inc. was being made, that was when they had the atrium. So they really sold them the DVD features.
Okay, so Dragon, let's pop the DVD in.
Real quick.
Sorry.
Just again, Pixar, the history of excellent features, and I got The Incredibles as a Christmas gift. So again, it came out in November of 2004, and again, that was like one of the most excellent Christmas gifts I got in 2005. This Incredibles DVD. So again, it's filled with great insight into the making of. It was more of an insight into the making of an animated film. Through kind of our story point of like, hey, here's the new crew, kind of the new boys of Pixar, kind of rolling in the place. Now we've established in Monsters Inc. Okay, here's what Pixar looks like, and now we're going to change the culture with these guys making this insane, awesome movie. So with that said, let's pop the disc in.
All right, let's pop in disc 1, Dragon. Let's get to the intro. What do we see in the intro?
Let's see. So the intro, we have Brad Bird. He's basically kind of giving us a rundown of what we're going to be experiencing. And in doing that, A Bug's Life, when that came out, Pixar in the early years, they had these DVD features that had introductions to kind of summarize the features, because this is relatively new territory they were doing back in those days, where they had to explain, okay, folks, there are going to be Easter eggs, surprises, going to be a lot of stuff. You have to look for it, though. Okay, you have to tell people to look for it on the DVD, and like use the remotes and everything. It was so quaint. Because Bug's Life had the Super Genius edition, all of them all sitting in the kind of the screening theater, telling folks about the the DVD features. And I guess Brad Bird was kind of, they were still continuing it at this point in time.
Right.
All right, so basically Brad Bird, he does the introduction. He has a similar thing on disc 2. Disc 1 primarily features, we have the main film. You have the introduction from Brad Bird. You have 2 commentary tracks, which is very impressive. We have a few sneak peeks, which includes the Cars teaser, and the whole little teaser test of Lightning McQueen and Mater
one of the
driving.
Impressive teaser trailers in Pixar's history.
True. So it's a very solid disc 1, because again, now what Pixar's kind of done is, it's very smartly, is if you got the 1 disc set of a Pixar movie, you would be guaranteed a commentary, because basically you'd get what a disc 1 like this would entail. And if you get the Blu-ray, now basically it's like the perfect sell line of nowadays, if you get a Blu-ray from Pixar, if you get the combo pack, you'll get the whole package. You get all these other features, but at the bare minimum, you'll still be happy with what you got. And that's good salesmanship, if you ask me. So we had 2 commentary tracks. We had 1 commentary track that is the director and producer commentary track with Brad Bird and John Walker, kind of his partner in crime, his producer buddy. And the other one is the animators commentary track, which is very informative. That includes there are many names, but the main important ones that you might recognize, Tiki. We have the 3 Caballeros. The 3 Caballeros, it's the nickname for the supervising animators: Tony Facilli, Steve Hunter, and Alan Borolaro, if I'm saying his name right. Mm-hmm. And they also have basically some Brad Bird's guys like Dave Mullins. He was on Iron Giant, and Angus MacLean. He did Toy Story of Terror, and Pete Sohn, the inspiration for Russell from
sure.
from Up, and the director of The Good Dinosaur. So again, a lot of famous Pixar names on this animator's commentary.
Okay, here's kind of like my ground rule with commentaries, Dragon.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, I think the one with Brad Bird and his partner in crime, just holding the conversation together and weaving a narrative for us as we're watching the movie. With all due respect to the animators, who I'm sure have really interesting nuggets of conversation, I think that I'd rather listen to the Brad Bird one myself.
And you're not wrong, and I agree full-heartedly with you, Tiki, because the breakdown's like this. So you got to remember, the really great thing that permeates through all of these features, especially like the making of, but again, especially this commentary track, is Brad Bird and John Walker, they have a great history with each other, where John Walker, for all intents and purposes, with the exception of Ratatouille, because that was a production that was, Brad Bird wasn't slated from the beginning, John Walker, he's always kind of in Brad's corner. And this is I think the only movie where he's been the full-fledged, like he was the main producer, where they're partners in crime, where John Walker basically tells him, he's the money man. He has to manage Brad Bird's creativity, and it's like a manager and a comedian almost. It's kind of their, it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David and Jeff Garlin, or Jeff Green, his character name. And so it's absolutely one of my favorites of the features on the DVD set. This and one other feature we're going to get to are my favorites, and it addresses everything here. Where the animator's commentary, it's insightful to kind of how the animation comes to life. It was full of, as you said, Tick, it's full of these great little nuggets. It's very fun fact filled, and it's nice to kind of get to know the animators. But it's pretty much just it's a series of that. But you're right, you get more of a back and forth. Basically, our gold standard for what a commentary with kind of our fan commentaries would be what we have with Brad Bird and John Walker.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel like there's probably, to me, the absolute limit to a commentary would be 4. Like once you've gotten past 4 people, you can have 4 people in a room sit down and have a really good dynamic with each other. You know what I mean? Once that 5th person gets introduced, then you've kind of put the 5th wheel on the car,
I think you're right, and I think the best example would be, so Pixar, again, honestly, in the first, I almost want to say the first phase, because when you break down Pixar, you almost have these phases, these eras of Pixar. And I guess basically from, let's say from Toy Story to Incredibles, just to keep it simple. Toy Story and Incredibles, you have they kind of abide by that rule, Tiki. Toy Story had some a few pre-recorded, if not pre-recorded, they were all in a room, but they had like that little announcer voice, when it says, it announces the name, but it really felt like it's 4. And then when they did Toy Story 2, it was like 4 in a room with like your 4 main guys. Kind of your Pixar kind of try to keep it the 4 on Toy Story. And I mean, honestly, that first Toy Story commentary, which had that line, that and Toy Story 2 had that whole "we don't care" line that we always cite all the time.
Of course.
But I mean, short of those Toy Story commentaries, this is probably my favorite of them. And again, those initial commentaries are really hard to beat, especially the Finding Nemo commentary. That's like the whole visual commentary thing they cooked up, which for the time.
Bambi DVD Dragon, I think.
No, I still don't have Bambi.
You know what's on it, though, right?
Yeah, I know you've told me this.
Scenes.
I'm sorry?
The storyboard pitches.
Oh, right. Yeah, you've told me about that. It sounds so it's really good, huh?
Oh, it's a treat. It's a treat.
It's something to keep in mind. All right. So again, overall, just real quick with the director-producer commentary. So the main highlights I gotta say, because it's been a while for you, Tiki. I get it, but my God, this thing is worth revisiting because it's one of my favorite of the Pixar commentaries. Period. Because it's kind of the most kind of honest and kind of most back and forthy kind of conversational commentary out of all of them, because they're talking about the process and basically they're actually addressing kind of the leap from 2D to 3D, where again Pixar's they worked from 3D from the beginning, so they kind of they're kind of used to it as they go forward in the years on the commentaries. And Brad Bird, he's kind of like the coolest teacher. That's for all these features in general. He's kind of like the "Oh Captain, My Captain" of the Pixar teachers,
Mm-hmm.
Or he's like the coolest guy in the room, like he's just telling you as it is, and you have that buddy comedy going on between them. It's a smart discussion, and I think the reason it's probably one of my favorite of the commentaries is that with all the stuff is it's a smart discussion of animation and storytelling to a smart audience, where we have my favorite line in this commentary is from Brad Bird. I love this line where he says, basically he's really passionate about people mistakenly calling animation a genre, where it's like animation just means it's kid affair. Well, obviously animation it's a method of storytelling. It's the presentation. It's not the genre.
Sure,
He
sure.
makes a big point of that, and he has this great line, the only way Brad Bird could deliver this, where he says, next person who says the animation genre, I'm gonna punch that person. Brad Bird has so many wonderful, wonderful gems. I love him so much.
Does he talk about the Frank and Ollie cameo?
He does. He mentions on the commentary, and it's one of the Easter eggs. So we'll get to that a little later. So again, it's funny, smart, and very informative. So it's a gold standard for a commentary and animation, but especially with Pixar commentary. So that's pretty much that. That summarizes disc 1, I think.
All right, so let's pop in disc 2 and get to Jack Jack Attack, which is the short film made by basically it was kind of the premise was the babysitter Kyrie was babysitting Jack Jack. What? Kari?
Yeah, Kari.
Oh, sorry.
So
babysitting Jack Jack, and this is kind of an interesting predecessor to the premise of The Incredibles 2 in some ways, Dragon.
It is, very interestingly, and I think going through this, again, this is good preparation for Incredibles 2, because we do get to see some ideas that were kind of, again, not intentionally, but kind of, well, for all we know, they could have been like, they obviously went back and they went over a lot of this stuff. So, again, it may have been they definitely need a lot of this information for Incredibles 2. It's just a question of how much they're pulling for Incredibles 2. Like, obviously, all the Jack Jack stuff is going to be Incredibles 2, as we see from the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is I don't know what the fancy film school term for this is, but I think it's like the shorthand is that this is a parallel spin-off short film. Is that it basically parallels the events of the movie, and it's a spin-off. But again, like the events, you could edit this into the movie if you wanted to. It wouldn't be a good idea, but you could do that if you wanted to. Because it
kind of like the Tales of the Fathom or whatever from Watchmen.
Tales of the Black Freighter, yeah. Sure. And yeah, basically, shows you what's going on the other end of when Helen's making her call to Kari, and things are weird stuff's happening. You can hear her on the phone just freaking out. We get to see the genesis of that in Jack Jack Attack here. So it's perfect. And with this short on the whole, and just keeping it specific to, because again, we could talk about Jack Jack Attack anytime, but I mean, specifying it to kind of the DVD of it all here as a feature. It's a perfect bonus short because you don't need it, but it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of side development that, again, very much so, looks like it's going to pay off in Incredibles 2. And all these extra powers that Jack Jack has, again, I think we're definitely going to see in a fun way. And in the execution of this, I love that it's kind of this old school kind of cartoon shenanigans going on here.
It's almost kind of got like a Roger Rabbit vibe to it,
like a Roger Rabbit, or like kind of like an old kind of Tom and Jerry cartoon almost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Roger Rabbit's probably the baby Herman of it all. Yeah, it's probably. Also, so on the re-release, I'll mention this here and there, but mainly here and at the very end, I'll talk about the re-release on the Blu-ray because it's really good. There's this really great feature where it's not a comment, it's kind of a visual commentary. They call it Jack Jack Exploded, and it's basically like they have all the pop-up stuff and the commentary playing as the short's going on. They tell you all these interesting factoids about the making of this. Like, for example, something that we see in this, Rick Dicker, the end of in the short, Rick Dicker mind wipes Kari, which is something that was a deleted scene from the movie where we saw Rick Dicker mind wipe Mr. Huff in the hospital room, because he mentions, like, how many mind wipes and all this stuff we got to do, Bob, and eventually he was going to go back into the room and mind wipe Mr. Huff, which is why he has no memory of how he got tossed across the room.
Yeah. So
they recycled that idea in this short, and again, it's kind of a great way of expanding the universe in a natural way that doesn't convolute the original. And here's something really interesting I didn't know until rewatching it for today. The BS line, the great BS gag with Syndrome, that was they pulled a recording that Jason Lee did for that when he's just kind of riffing his Syndrome. The whole, well, I couldn't have like a BS on the uniform because that would just would have looked bad. It's a little fun. But,
all right.
Okay,
so next we get to the deleted scenes. These are really interesting, and I especially love how each of them comes with an intro and outro, kind of explaining where they would have fit into the movie and why they had to get taken out.
Exactly, and I always love it when we have those explanations. And a lot of the times you'll have like on regular on your ordinary DVDs, you'll have the deleted scenes, and if you're lucky, you'll have like a director's commentary you can overlay, that will be overlaid on top of the scene. But this is a far better way of doing it, because when you see the kind of the raw animatics and the storyboards, and they're using this. See, Brad Bird kind of accident. I love that he accidentally was responsible for kind of animations previs, with the After Effects. Basically, and Andy Jimenez, one of Brad Bird's guys from Iron Giant, who worked on this film too. And when we see these storyboards, Tiki, against the same technique, where he basically photocopied all these boards, and basically the way they laid them out, and you would animate the boards, and that's why we have kind of that neat, kind of sketchy style along with the regular animatics. That's all Brad Bird accidentally invading animations previs. I'm just that good. Spielberg did it with live action. I do with animation. Take that, Spielberg.
All right, so to me, the two real highlights with the deleted scenes are the alternate opening, and then, of course, the moment with Syndrome that eventually gets echoed in the film's finale.
Of course, and that's all in the alternate opening.
Oh, I guess I kind of took the Syndrome thing as like a second part to the alternate opening, but okay, I guess the alternate opening, like the other stuff is really good, don't get me wrong. I just think the alternate opening stuff is really fascinating.
All right, so by the way, we also have we highlight Mark Andrews, who again is hugely important and one of Brad Bird's guys. He's honestly, Brad Bird and Mark Andrews are the guys I'd love to be as storytellers. I really mean that. Where Mark Andrews, he's the action guy. He's the story guy. I would love to be in that. This guy hasn't, we're going to get to some stuff with Mark Andrews later on. But I mean, the conversations that he has with Brad Bird definitely would kind of shape the story process. And as Brad Bird says, it's kind of one of his favorite moments in making the movie, just kind of talking over these ideas in the story room with Mark Andrews. So. Basically, it's like great story 101 in these conversations with these really smart guys in the room, kind of like saying, we love these ideas and these are why we had to make these smart cuts. And again, I love that they justify, I mean, you can make your own opinion, but again, I think all of these cuts are justified in like, yeah, they make an excellent point. It would have been cool, but they had to come out for very specific reasons. So let's talk about the alternate opening.
Yeah, so the alternate opening takes place when Violet is an infant.
Yes.
And Bob and Helen are seemingly being introduced around a new neighborhood, a fancy neighborhood. And they're kind of the new people on the block. And Helen gets into a bit of an altercation with someone who thinks that being a mother is not a legitimate profession. And this causes Bob to
accidentally not cut off his fingers, but seemingly cut off his fingers to Logan. He basically has a meat cleaver and he's like cutting steaks, and he's distracted. And of course, you gotta remember he's invulnerable. He basically, I love that the cleaver like forms around his fingers, as in obviously it has not, his fingers are not cut off. And they have to communicate that visual, otherwise it's gonna be horrifying. And just he has to act like. Just everyone's like screaming because they goes, "Oh my god! Look, the cleaver!" It's
like a can of barbecue sauce or something.
Yeah, he goes like ketchup or something. And just it's like ah! He basically, I love the neck motion where he motions Helen over like ah. A little help here, basically make a big scene and that. So here's a few things with this opening to the alternate opening. Here is that one, we have a really smart commentary on kind of how people view stay-at-home parents and kind of the things stay-at-home parents have to deal with, and kind of being undervalued at times, kind of the Mr. Mom effect,
Sure.
And so it's a really smart comment. So again, I love it. We do gain a lot of interesting ideas in these deleted scenes, though. Again, stuff that I wouldn't rule out.
Honestly, I feel like this is kind of some stuff like we might not see it play out exactly like this in Incredibles 2, but it might be a little bit of a note to take of like, the road that Incredibles 2 might go down thematically.
Precisely. Basically do what something like Toy Story 2 did, where they recycled the Woody's Nightmare idea, and we had it even better in Toy Story 2. Something like that. We might take kind of the core root of the idea and kind of see it. Again, I think we'll do again with the Mr. Mom thing with Bob. I definitely could see seeds of that here.
Okay, you want to talk about the Syndrome scene then?
Well, sure. Just real quick though with scar makeup. I love the scar makeup detail where she's like saying, "You know what this means, though, right? Yeah, I want the bandages and scar makeup." I love again, the one of the mantras from Brad Bird on the movie, something that Tiki and I we go gaga over with The Incredibles, is the fantastic and the mundane, or the mundane and the fantastic. That's kind of the mantra of the movie. We see that all over the place, and that's definitely, like, you know, again, you're super heroic, but you got to live with the consequences. Well, I'm invulnerable, but I got to pretend to be vulnerable though.
Right, right.
All right, so yes, let's look at the syndrome of it all. Hit us.
Okay, so honestly, this plays out quite a lot like the finale to the movie where Syndrome's invading the house. The one moment, and this is the moment that Brad Bird really stresses he wishes he could have kept too, is when Mr. and Mrs. Incredible are floating in Syndrome's energy as he's going for Violet's room, as he hears the baby, and there ain't nothing they can do about it.
Now, here's a line. He has a really creepy line that he says that every time I've heard that line, it always gives me pause, and I think Incredibles 2 might, again, in the similar route with the whole stay-at-home mom thing, or the stay-at-home parent thing, we might get an inkling of, because it'll be interesting to see how the world perceives this, because Syndrome had a really creepy line where he says, "Oh, you're breaking the law, Mr. Incredible. You know supers aren't supposed to breed." So I wonder if the Parr family might be kind of in this weird ethical bubble of, well, I mean, we have more supers in the world now. I am not saying they're going to necessarily address that. I'm just saying it'd be interesting to see if they go back, because again, it was a deleted scene, so you can't take a lot of it to heart. So, you know, at the end of the day.
Sure.
Anyway, so yes, again, we introduced Syndrome. Basically, Syndrome was so popular in the scene, he was just going to be like a pre-established villain from Mr. Incredible's history. He was just going to be like a one-off scene, possibly. And they had a main villain. The main villain was this guy named Zarek, who I think we've talked about before.
Yeah. And this is a really interesting, like, I still don't know a ton about what they were going for with him. It seemed like they only had kind of like a loose idea of, like, he was supposed to be, like, basically the idea was that he was like someone that was supposed to be like charming Mr. Incredible over to his side, right?
Yeah, it was something like that. And again, with keeping kind of the Incredibles 2 of it all alive, I think it's an idea we might see flirted with kind of our branding of the supers coming up there. I'm not entirely sure, but I think Zarek was, at the very least, Zarek seemed like he was going to be a Bond villain. I think they were going to use the volcano island and everything for this guy. And again, basically, Bob might have been like kind of charmed into accidentally working for the bad guy. I think that might have been the idea. Again, I can't substantiate that, but I know Zarek was. I'm pretty sure they were going to use like the whole Bond kind of like volcano lair and everything for Zarek. I'm pretty sure about that. Anyway, so again, Syndrome he kind of stole the show and the whole 0 point energy and everything. Which, by the way, 0 point energy. I don't know where we're at now, but at least in 2000, kind of the early 2000s, 0 point energy was an actual theoretical thing that was being developed.
Really?
Seriously, that's where they got the whole it works, like it has this weird effect on gravity and everything. At least it was theoretical. I don't know how far they were talking about developing it. At that time, I don't know how far we ever got with it, but it was an actual thing.
Okay, I guess really quick, Dragon. Do you want to get into Helen's pilot?
Yeah, Snug. Let's talk about these. Snug's the other major one. I'll just list off the names of those. We'll just mention. We'll talk about Snug though first. So Snug was, again, a really smart cut that.
I feel like this is a character where, by all intents and purposes, he would have worked in the movie and he would have been an effective death. But the only problem is, as Bird and company keep saying, there just wasn't enough room to like introduce his character, give him screen time, flesh him out before he dies. It's just like a big time commitment, a big time sacrifice you have to make there.
And of course, it's one of those great moments, Lester had the idea of like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if Helen was the pilot? And he says, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool, but someone needs to die. And of course, all right, it's your movie. And then, of course, just like, darn it, you're right. Yeah, we gotta. Yeah, we need Helen. It would be cool if Helen was the pilot, and basically, if we get rid of the Snug stuff, then we'd save a lot more. So, by the way, I meant to bring something to the top to you, Tiki, or at least somewhere I was going to tell you this. Did you know, not counting like the minute longer that Cars is, The Incredibles is the longest Pixar film?
Yeah, I knew that.
It's Incredibles and technically Cars by 1 minute. Just that bothers me. By 1 minute, it beats that record. I just want to say, Incredibles 2 will beat that record, though. From what I've seen the time, I've seen the length of the time. It's probably a few more minutes than the first Incredibles movie. So, again, Incredibles 2, longest of the Pixar films, because they got a lot of awesome stuff in The Incredibles. And by proxy, they have to lose some stuff like the snug scene to make room for the other good stuff. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. So let's see. So basically, they streamline all stuff with Snug. We hear his voice on the phone. Let me think, and that's pretty much all we get of Snug now. All right. So basically, we had some scenes like Vipers, which is basically like vultures kind of going over the water, which is just like, yeah, they lost that for good reason. There's a scene of Bob in traffic where basically he kind of stops like he stops some crooks from getting away and gets antsy with the cops. And it's basically, we did all the office stuff way better, so like we got rid of that. We had this one scene that I really was fascinated by, Helen confronting Bob, which I think was really gutsy and bold, and I love the ending. The ending of that scene, I'm going to mention real quick, I love the ending of the scene where Bob says, basically, Helen thinks he was having an affair, and they have this like little in the background with the whole mirage of it all. And basically she's confronting him about this, and at the very end, Bobby kind of defends himself here, and he has this very human moment where he says to her, I was just getting the suit clean. He basically took the risk in getting the suit clean and everything. She's yelling about that and thinking he might have an affair, and he basically says, why do you gotta, I was feeling successful, so I got the suit clean. He said, never mind. I love that moment where he just says, I did it because I was feeling successful. And he's a guy who's been tied down by life. He just did this. He took this risk to feel alive again. It's almost like a Walter White moment. I loved it,
Right.
Okay, so then Helen's nightmare, which again, me, Tiki, I love a good dream sequence, and I admit it was well done. But again, you don't need it at all. It's just it was cool looking.
No, this was one I was glad to see go.
Yeah, sure, but absolutely. Again, plus if they get rid of the earlier plot line, of course they don't need this. All right, that's pretty much all of the deleted scenes. Let's get to the big meat and potatoes of it all here. Let's talk about the making of the first one.
All right. So I love how it starts with just like some Brad Bird goodness and just kind of goes from there, Dragon. I love how this movie is the documentary essentially is just kind of like these, as you said, Dragon, the new men on the street kind of just coming into Pixar to show the old folks how it's done. You know what I mean? Just kind of like it's very much a passing of the torch, if you will.
Yeah, it's a strong making of that captures the story of the new crew at Pixar. That's the main driving story. And I love that we use some of this footage in the Pixar story documentary, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, Pixar, the genesis of the making of and what the making of explores with kind of this new culture clash of like, Brad Bird and his guys kind of influencing Pixar and kind of changing the way the company kind of does things in a good way, basically kind of like shaking things up, which is why they were brought in. There's that Pixar smartly, they brought in these crazy creative people so they would not repeat themselves and get complacent, which is a very smart move. And again, if you're like at the top of the heap, you'd imagine, let's just keep pumping it out like this. But no, let's take a big risk. Let's bring in someone talented that we know could get the job done instead of just kind of like, they were kind of in a cycle of new directors. And they get to a point where, okay, let's get a new director. Again, we've reached, it's John Lasseter, it's John Lasseter, Pete Docter, Andrew Stanton. And of course, next on the docket would just be recycling around those guys. Like, no, let's bring in the next guy. So, let's see. So, Brad. So, I love that we have Brad Bird's guys, and of course, Tony Facioli being a big one. I love Tony Facioli so much, and I love all of Brad Bird's crew here. And Tony Facioli, I love he's like kind of the grumpy bear in the morning who like he's this calm, almost really stoic Easter Island of a guy who's just he's an excellent artist, but I can't say enough nice things about Tony Facioli. I believe he designed Lou from the Lost and Found short. TK. I'm pretty sure he designed Lou.
That is some high level Pixar character animation right there. I
know he did a sketch of him that looks pretty much like what the finished product looks like. I don't know if he did the very first one. I know he worked on it. He has a design that looks exactly like Lou ended up being.
Okay, cool.
The point is he's a character designer. Again, we'll get more to character design with Tony Facioli later on. But the point is, so we have like Brad's guys like Tony Facioli and Dave Mullins and such, and Teddy Newton. But here's the thing I love. You kind of see the genesis of here, Tiki, is that Lou Romano, who of course is the voice of Linguini in Ratatouille, you get to see him meet Brad Bird in this making of, where we have this really pivotal scene where Lou Romano, he gets passionate and he kind of stands up to Brad Bird, where he says, Brad Bird's talking about, like, do we want Bob to be this bald and stuff? And then Lou Romano, they have this beautiful sculpt of Bob on the table. And I love that it remains the same, but it was just like, no, you're trying to ruin this design. Anyways, he gets really antsy with him and animated, pretty much like Linguini does. And yeah, I love Lou Romano. And because of this, Lou Romano, he was a Pixar, he was a Pixar production designer who kind of got turned to Brad Bird's side. So I love how Brad Bird did kind of shake up the culture of Pixar and kind of permeated himself in the building.
Like Brad Bird kind of like, he almost sort of turned it from like a, like a stuffy like college campus into a party campus. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, and that's a good analogy. But I mean, Pixar, they've never been kind of the elitist. I think what it is that, I know you're not really saying that, but I think what
sure.
maybe a more apt description would be that they're kind of like they're the, let's look at Animal House, like they're Flounder from Animal House, where they're the they're the nice quiet guys, and then you have like kind of the rowdy, good-hearted party boy and Brad Bird and his guys, and they kind of like, yeah, let's have some fun, like, yeah, let's have some fun. It's kind of what it ends up being with Pixar's, like basically kind of like got them to kind of be more expressive with their cool animation jive, Maybe that's it. So again, but speaking of which, Brad Bird, one of the things I love about the guy, he's really passionate and shouting in meetings, and we get to see that.
Oh yeah.
Lou Romano too, and again, just then him having his back and forth with John Walker, and like I love that John Walker's like ever the referee in all this, where he comes in after Lou Romano loses his cool saying, no, we're gonna keep this design, and they says, I think we've all learned something here, and this is the part where John sums up the meeting. So I just love there's this great video diary quality to the whole thing. And of course, we get another great adage from Brad Bird applied to the movie. The mantra of the movie, aside from the mundane, the fantastic, is use every part of the buffalo. Which is great and a wonderful philosophy in animation. We use every part of the buffalo here, man, where nothing goes unused. And yeah, remember, these are people taking on an impossible task that we'll break down when we get to the more making of here, like why this is such an impossible task. They're doing like the first Pixar movie that's all humans. That figure like weight and physics, and the Jungle Book bit where basically we see them citing. I love how they cited the Jungle Book test, the Jungle Book footage to get the physics of it all down, because physics was a really hard thing to nail down for if a guy has super
exactly, and it's just one of those things where that's the cool thing about watching this DVD in general. Dragon is it's definitely kind of like a time capsule of where Disney was at the time, where Pixar was at the time. It's trippy to go back and see in some ways.
Let me hit you with one more big trippy thing that you bring up, then we'll move on to the next one. So John Cars, who's also, I believe, on the commentary. John Cars, you get to see him here, and John Cars, he really pushed himself. He was allowed to push himself with Brad Bird. He's like kind of able to kind of test himself as an animator, and of course, John Cars, he had been around. He was one of Pixar's guys. I believe he'd been around since Toy Story 2, I think. And of course, years later, Paperman.
Oh yeah.
Cars. I mean, again, we get to see again. I think I would love this. In my own headcanon, I like to think Brad Bird is in some way tangentially responsible for Paperman, because he kind of let John Cars off the leash, like, hey man, challenge yourself, and hey, Paperman, amazing. The making of is very impressive. They could have left it there. But we could leave it there, but we're going to do even better. We're going to do more features. Before we get there, let's talk about some bloopers.
Whoa, boy, things are going to get wacky.
And speaking of the challenges that they went up against, again, they're doing all these very difficult things. They're speaking of doing like, hair.
Can I just say I've taken 3D modeling classes, and there's no way I would have the patience for this, man. This is not my career. Like, I respect it. I respect the hell out of it, but I would just lose my shit at some of this stuff.
I know I'd never be cut out to be like a computer animator by any stretch. I know that. I mean, you have to be a madman, and in the best of ways, you have to be like a madman in the sense of like he's like a mad scientist, like a mad genius who'd be able to handle this. So
Right.
I respect it. I respect it. More so, you gotta respect, and we'll get to it, the technical designers. Those are the guys you really have to. Those are the unsung heroes of the whole process. But I mean, the animators, though, they gotta they got to do the foundation, but the technical designers without their work, I mean, this is what you get if they don't do their jobs right. You get the incredible blunders. And again, folks, I'm not saying like they botched this up. I'm just saying it's a work in progress, and they're doing this stuff for the first time, figuring it out. And we see a number of, without going into like every single blunders, generally what we kind of see with like. We basically showed the difficulty in animation on humans. We have all these crazy, essentially they're dailies. They're like animation, unfinished animation. Where Brad Bird had to review this, and this is his first computer animated film, so that's another thing. He just kind of dived into this film, and it was a first time for him. So it's like looking at an eye chart on a lot of this. We're like, what the heck do we do with this? Where you see the hair animation, you have hair that's frizzy, it's unattached, it's loose, the simulator's off, there's intersection being like, you know, when the hair's like going through the face, it's all weird and scary. We get the wardrobe. Mr. T, do you want to take us through some of this, or?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, Dragon. I'm just okay, let me see. Honestly, kind of some of the gags are kind of running together for me. I have a lot more to say about some of the stuff coming up. So if you want to quickly just run through the
sure.
And I'll have a lot more to say about the stuff coming up. I'm sorry.
No problem. So of course, we have the wardrobe, and the wardrobe, basically, there was I remember Brad Bird speaking to us that, you know, there's like a lack of clothing issue. And again, if you're a first timer coming into this, like, okay, don't mind the naked.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm sorry. Now I remember. It's just like, and I love the laugh track they put over it, and Helen is just putting in these ridiculous, like, cardboard box suits and ties, and it's
like
just
the ultimate, like these really starchy sleeves that are just sticking out. Again, you don't, folks. If you're a logical person, say, how the heck does that work? Where you like where the shirts are sticking? You just think they tell them to go straight down, but no, why are they sticking out, folks? It's the wacky world of computer animation. If you're like one moment, if like 1, 1, and 0 is off, you're just
yep.
It's difficult. Of course, more intersection on the clothing. Basically, someone could walk out of their clothes and it'd be really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And then we have some bits of there's having fun where we have. Let's see. We have. Oh yes, we have, you know, Elastigirl, like she just kind of like whacks against a building. Basically, the having fun section is basically the animators just kind of going a little sillier, basically doing stuff that they kind of change their minds on. Where you see like Elastigirl when she's like swerving through the big pillars, like she just like, what if she had comedically like slammed right into one? It's the animators having fun.
Right.
Then you have this bit where it was in the movie, but they decided it was too creepy. Where Syndrome he licked. He licked Mirage when he's being really creepy next to her.
Oh, God.
Then you have Bon Voyage, and he's missing a face. Where against the simulator way off, and he's like chattering teeth and these bulging eyes. It's really scary.
Oh man.
And you have like these little, it's like the scene looks like it's going great, but they have these finishing touches you gotta fix. Where you have like this cross-eyed girl, and you have Tony Reidinger with like these really buck teeth.
God.
Then you have Gooey Jack, which is something that Brad Bird and John Walker, they fought over, because initially Brad Bird wanted Gooey Jack, and it's like, oh god, the animation's never going to look good on that. We don't have the budget for Gooey Jack. They can never get it to work. So again, on the whole, just fire, hair, water, cloth, humans, all panic-inducing things that you're handling with a November release date. So crazy.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about ballads. Sarah Ballad.
Yeah, okay. So this was definitely a big moment for me, Dragon, because I was a reclusive 14-year-old, like shy, nerdy writer type. And so when I saw this bonus feature, I fell in love with the Violet character even more, knowing that the person behind the voice was essentially my spirit animal, Dragon. Like, I don't say that in any sort of a creepy sexual kind of way. I say that in like Dragon, I can't drive either. You know what I mean? There's so many like weird Sarah Vowell isms that apply to my life. And that's what I love about this documentary. I think this is honestly my favorite thing on the whole DVD, because it really represents me. It really represents kind of like a look into something that we don't often get to explore all that much, which is, voice actors who aren't celebrities, who aren't big names in the industry. You know, they're merely someone who happened to be at the right place at the right time to get their voices noticed and out there. And that's what Sarah needed to do for the role of Violet, because she just she is Violet Parr, you know what I mean? That's just like, you know, she's just she radiates Violet's personality. So I love the short personally. It's about 9 minutes. It's, you know, it's full of fun facts and tidbits, and it's just got a nice beat to it. It's got a nice kind of rhythm to it, and it's just really good stuff.
Sure, sure. I mean, I love, you know, so Sarah Vowell, you know, she's a historian and writer, and we definitely, what I love thematically in this short Tiki is that we show, again, kind of the mantra of the movie, the mundane and the fantastic. What we do with Sarah is we show kind of these heroic undertones in the mundane, where she's a very average person. I mean that in a good way. You know, she's just, you know, she's an average Joe. But again, like, she's interested in, you know, in a very historic, you know, she's a historian. Specifically, she's a big Abraham Lincoln buff. And again, like, it's heroic in the sense of, like, these guys are, you know, the foundation of the very, very patriotic foundation of the country, stuff like that. And again, very heroic actions, but not the conventional heroic way. And again, I think it's kind of why she's Violet in a way. I think it's kind of what if there's any thematicism, again, it's pretty much a short for a short's sake in a good way. But if you're reading into it, I think it fits with the tone of the movie that it's just an average person who, again, is mundane, but with, you know, absolutely kind of a heroic spirit about her. Where again, on the whole, Sarah seems to be, you know, dry and understated, but sincere. I like that she seems to be a good person. Like, she can play sardonic, but she isn't sardonic, and I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that balance. And my favorite, so two things. So this is really great and heady when you realize that. I don't know if I really can't remember any other cases where I've seen this, but for the most part, famously, you know, Buzz and Woody, when Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, and originally Billy Crystal, more so Billy Crystal and Tom Hanks, they were sent test animation with Buzz and Woody to kind of sell them on the movie in the process. And bear in mind, it's the first computer animated film, so of course they had to do that. And they did a similar thing with Sarah Vowell, where they had test animation to a radio interview she did about, like, a cannon going off. So that's kind of how they sold her on the project. It's kind of like a really mind-blowing thing. If I'm right, there's like, we haven't seen test animation like that for years.
Oh yeah, it was a big deal for sure.
And my favorite bit, and it might be just a small bit, my favorite bit in the whole short is I love the action figures that she opens. Basically, she gets this Violet toys sent to her, and she opens a very extraneous process, having to cut through with the scissors and everything. And I love that she places it with her own action figures, being her Abraham Lincoln collectibles. And we have this really profound, and again, they really know how to use the Giacchino score here, where basically they put the two Violet figures, the invisible translucent one and the regular Violet, next to this Abraham Lincoln little paperweight, I guess. And it reveals, as the dun, 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 very heroic music's going on, liberty, justice, equality. Man, that's awesome. I don't know what it is. It's cool. I mean, she's relatable, likable, and she just lives like a humble alter ego. And that's kind of how she views herself. So again, it's a really little informative little feature.
All right. Oh boy. Okay, here we go, Dragon. More making of. I got to admit, I skimmed these a couple times. I'm a little rusty on them, Dragon. So I'll definitely be able to talk about more, like, the rest of the stuff on here. But for this, I mean, they're quick little featurettes. We have kind of summarizing the story. We have character design, evolution, building humans, building extras, set design, sound, music, and lighting and tools. Yeah. So there are a lot of different kind of subsects here, and they're all last like what, maybe like 3 minutes, Dragon.
Well, some like story, music, and I think characters, and they're like maybe like 5 to 6 minutes.
Okay, but even still, that's not going to take like a large chunk out of your day. You know what I mean?
Sure. So
I feel like this is just the ultimate kind of pick me up, where it's like, if you want to sit down and watch some incredible stuff, but you don't want to commit to watching a full making of, there you go, you know? And also it's for people like us who just want more.
Yeah, and it's a great walkthrough of the process, and that's the big thing I really want to kind of communicate with the DVD release here. Is that again the main making of feature kind of covers a little bit of everything, but specifically in what the DVD really strives for more than honestly a lot of the other Pixar features. And don't get me wrong, they do show the animation process, but literally there's a large majority of the features on the disc walks you through the process. And again, for me, these DVD features are really my insight into kind of how Pixar makes the magic happen, kind of what the computer animated, what the animation process is like. And Monsters Inc. is more of the process of character animation, where it walks you through like Sully and the layout and all the phases of that. But that's like it's kind of like a one and done feature almost. It's like, you know,
Right.
walking through one sequence. This kind of walks you through the various elements of production, see how they
This
interlock. And
walks you through everything. This is a crash course in computer animation right here.
that's what I'm saying. I really appreciate that. And I like that's the mantra of the disc. Where again, we have some character stuff, for the most part, though, out of all the Pixar features, again, at this, at that time, again, this is the most in depth of a feature and kind of walking through the 101 of computer animation. So let's break it down real quick. We're gonna have more to say on others, like story, for example. The story, basically, this is the Mark Andrews of it all. And again, I go crazy for Mark Andrews. From what I understand, I think he's going to be slated to do another a solo movie for a new original, one of the original 5 Pixar movies coming up. I think he's slated to do one of them, so I'm looking forward to that, if that's still the case. So Mark Andrews, he always stuck with me because he's an idea man. If I could ever be anything in the story medium, it would be the idea man. I've always kind of tried to live up to that. And
I
this
feel like all the conversations that you and I have had off air, Dragon, a lot of them are just like, that movie was great, but I have one idea to make it a lot better.
right. So I mean, he's kind of Pixar's Todd McFarlane in a way. That's kind of what Mark Andrews is, and to an extent, just this ball of energy. And the thing that always stuck with me with Mark Andrews from a just his philosophy and kind of the way he approaches things, and the thing that always stuck with me. Again, these features really defined how I looked into Pixar, and kind of how I fell in love with Pixar. And the moment here with Mark Andrews that's in this little story section is when basically I forget if he or Brad Bird says this about him, where he says uh, Mark Andrews always has an idea at the ready, where he always says, like, if he'll give you an idea and you shoot it down, he'll come right back at you with another one. I've always tried to live up to that with Mark Andrews. Like, if I could be like a tenth of what that guy is as a storyteller, yeah, I'd be in good shape. So let's see. So we have let's see. So we see again more of the Jimenez After Effects and animatics in play when they're kind of going over the general story process, how they break it down to the animatic phase and such. I guess the last big thing to hit with stories, because again, overall, it doesn't rehash what we've had before, but again, it specifies on the story of it all. And again, it's mainly it's kind of Mark Andrews kind of walking you through kind of the back and forth idea process and how they kind of talk through the ideas and bring it to life. Where um, the big takeaway on a rewatch is that it's character based. Mark Andrews is the action guy, and being the action guy, his trick to it all is that he kept the action sequences character based, and I think that was such a smart thing. It never really occurred to me that yes, all the action sequences in The Incredibles, the reason they maintain themselves so well after all these years, the reason they stick out so much is that they are character based. 100-Mile Dash, that's all Dash. Bob versus the Omnidroid. Elastigirl sneaking around. It's all you're focused on the character before it's just like, hey, big action, big flashy action set piece. So, speaking of character,
I'm sorry. I'm just like, this is probably the last time we're going to do a 1 a.m. show because my energy level is just really low. Is there any way we could just kind of just summarize the rest of these and just kind of get going? Because I mean, not necessarily get going like in general, but I mean for the more making of, because I don't want to go through each one of these individually in the same level of detail. Like, I don't have the energy for this.
All right, let me basically fast track it here. Give me one second. All right. Okay, so again, just as we've kind of laid out here, so character design. That's mainly it's Tony Facioli kind of walking you through design and character theory. And one thing I'll say, mainly spent on character design. The rest of them will just go by like that.
Okay, sounds good.
Character design. So Teddy Newton and Tony Facioli are very pivotal in character design. Again, these are Brad Bird's guys, and Teddy Newton had kind of that collage style where he basically found the silhouette of a character. Like Dash has like the hair that comes to a point. Bob has that kind of that Roman nose, and they work together as a pair so well. Teddy Newton comes up with the rudimentary design, kind of the character within the design, and Tony Facilli makes it practical for animation. He kind of does the Batman the Animated Series design theory, where basically we make it practical. We make it kind of something that can be animated, kind of the streamlined design. Like he gave Bob like an Egyptian '60s look of like he has like the curvature. It's a character before it's like a really in-depth design. So then the rest of the features kind of go like this. So we have Evolution, which is talking about Edna, which of course is this little fun like 2-minute, like, hey, the evolution of Edna from Helen's friend to kind of the Bette Midler cross-pollinated Edna mode that she is. Basically, then we have Building Humans, which again is kind of the war between the technical designers and the animators, like making it all happen. Of like, yeah, we gotta build humans, and we can't make them like Al from Al's Toy Barn. We gotta make them. We gotta make them feasible, because as John Walker famously said, he was told by one of the technical designers, hair is theoretical. Hair's theoretical. This thing's coming out in November. We get anyway. So then we have like set design, sound, music, which of course does how Giacchino he kind of figured out the incredible sound. We have lighting and tools, and lighting basically that's where I learned basically you have that's how we get animation looking how great as it does, because you have like lighting, shading, and rendering all under the lighting capacity there. So it's really really reliant on each other. And tools basically is the technical designers kind of doing their thing. So it's pretty much the and of course, set design too. Set design giving us kind of that '60s futurism look. And lastly, real quick, the Universal Man. All the extras are basically this one character that they had to change and mold, because they can only afford the main characters and one extra, and that one extra is the Universal Man, which they turn into pretty much every other character you see in the movie, which is fascinating and really clever. Okay.
Nice. All right, Dragon. I can take the lead for this one, or at least. Right. You can fill in the gaps for me when you need to. But so with the top secret stuff, we have the NSA files narrated by Rick Dicker. And then we have Mr. Incredible and Pals, which is just the best 3 minutes of comedy I've ever seen in my life, especially with the commentary on it.
Oh, yeah. So, so again, by the way, the whole DVD set has like it's styled into Chrono. So basically, you walked into where Bob was during the movie, where Mr. Incredible, he typed in the Kronos password. And he's basically going through the database, and it's kind of what the DVD menu is. And you go into the National Supers Agency, the NSA.
Right.
I still love that gag, by the way, National Super NSA. Anyway, so with the NSA files, I read this into a Tiki, and I could be crazy here, but I wonder. I read it as perhaps all the images that we have of the supers are the same images that we have in Syndrome's database when we go to Kronos. And I wonder.
I could see that. There's definitely a lot of possibilities here. I love how much this one singular bonus feature fleshes out the world of the Incredibles. It really. To me, it's almost kind of like some of the supplementary material we get from Watchmen, to bring it back to that.
Exactly. It does feel very Watchmen-esque, and of course, one of the huge Watchmen-esque ideas that's actually in The Incredibles is like the Keene Act from Watchmen, where basically all the superheroes were forced to retire by the government. That's definitely something that we're going to play with in the sequel even more so. And speaking of that, so again, with the Chronos, I guess what I'm saying is, I wonder, because we use the same images, I wonder if Syndrome hacked the NSA files, and that's how he found out Mr. Incredible's identity. My little headcanon is going to come up with on there. Okay, well, basically, what we do is we have all of these supers, and again, we world build, and again, this is stuff that we're definitely going to see. We're going to see some new supers and new characters.
Remind me of the name of the trio that keeps popping up, Dragon, because that was the most intriguing thing for me.
There's the fan. Crap. I know all the heroes. I forget the group name though. The group name is like there's the Beta. There are 3 teams. There's the Beta team. There's the Phantasmics, and there's the Horrific Trio or the Something Trio.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Terrific Trio was the one that really got out to me, because to me it was like listening to a goddamn episode of Serial, where it's like, yeah, the Terrific Trio was back and was great in its glory day, but something happened, man. Something happened.
And again, all this world building with these supers is something we're definitely going to see with like more characters in Incredibles 2. Unfortunately, I would love to see some of these guys in Incredibles 2. I don't think we are, though. I think they just kind of came with some really cool kind of designs are just going to go even more fresh into the next one.
Mhm.
But without going into all of them, because obviously we'd be here all day if we went through all of them. I want to highlight 3 real quick. So again, there's not a lot to them. Just
sure, go ahead.
There's Eversea. Eversea was this character who was his power was that he had like supervision. He had vision and telepathy and clairvoyance. Like he could see the future. It was all seeing powers. He could read minds. He could foresee events.
Mm-hmm.
Yet he had 2 problems though. He was obsessive compulsive because he could see everything very clearly, and with his telepathy, when he read squirrels' minds, it's a very Rick and Morty idea by today's standards, but he could read squirrels' minds and would wig them out. So that's the thing. Eversea's just kind of. I love all of these heroes. All of these heroes, if you look into their well detailed backstories, and a lot of them have voice recordings and audio recordings. And a lot of them, they fit that fantastic and the mundane. They all kind of have like a big debilitating thing about them that makes them like not so super. And I love that. So Eversea is that. Hypershock. Hypershock he was this ill-tempered drunk. Literally, it's like his weakness. He likes the drink. That's what it's. He likes the drink, and he says, "I got a hangover," and he wants coffee, and he's just angry.
Yeah, Hypershock was the one where I was just like, okay, there's no way that this could be in the actual movie. You know what I mean? This is them just making a goof out of it just for the sake of making a goof.
Sure, and the most important though that is in the movie, and it's always a memorable name drop in the movie that we get expounded upon here. Thunderhead. Mm-hmm. So Thunderhead was the guy who got he knocked out the guy, then he basically got blasted off with his rocket. I think that was him. I don't think that was Dynaguy. Yeah, that wasn't Dynaguy. Had to be Thunderhead. So Thunderhead. Elastigirl had that. Edna had that great line where she said, "Oh, he was good with kids," and I love that in his backstory. He did love kids, and he was doing like a PSA to the kids about staying in school because he was a dumb guy, but he was a nice guy. He wasn't too bright, hence him getting killed over the Cape. And I read this, and this thing blew my mind. He adopted 5 kids as a single father. He liked kids that much. That's adorable.
Yeah.
All right, so okay, that's pretty much all the NSA. Again, there's tons of really interesting things.
I mean, we could literally do a whole podcast based just on that. You know what I mean?
Okay, we got to dedicate a little bit of time to Mr. Incredible and Pals because this is so
is this the other one you were talking about? Because this to me is like the creme de la creme. This is
I mean, Brad Bird commentary and the commentary on Mr. Incredibles and Pals. These are my favorite features on the entire DVD set.
The commentary of Mr. Incredibles and Pals is just like they go places you never thought they'd go with it.
They do, and it's fascinating. And Tiki on the re-release, they added some Samuel L. Jackson style bleeps.
Oh God.
Even better, but it's so fantastic. So I love this feature, and I love how brilliant it is, and just the idea there was like a proposed cartoon to Mr. Incredible and Frozen by this agent to
cutting edge lip technology.
Yes, to expand their,
I guess you could call it.
God. And basically, I think the gag here, it's like one of those old cartoons where basically it's kind of what How It Should Have Ended is doing with like the dubs now, where they kind of have like mouths over the footage, and it looks a lot like they're taking a dig at like 60s Marvel, where they had basically like the really lazy animation. Basically, they made comics movies.
Oh yeah,
that's what they called an animated, like the 60s Spider-Man cartoon. It wasn't bad, but it was just literally the comic. That's all it was. and my favorite trope. So 2 things. Pete Docter does the voice and the lip movement for Mr. Incredible, by the way, in this. And I love that they're describing the animation, and Frozone points this out, where he says, "Wait, didn't you make the ice bridge? That's the best part," because Mr. Incredible literally describes, like, "Oh man, you're making that ice bridge." Just don't have the budget for it.
And then of course all the stuff with the rabbit, like, "Oh come on, the rabbit, the kids like rabbits. All right, the rabbit stinks."
Rabbit bites, and just Mr. Skipperdo, and the fact you're holding the rabbit's hand, that's even better. So Frozen just progressively gets more and more peeved as the thing goes on, and we get this hilarious argument. The argument is hysterical between the 2 of them, and then the added bleeps just make this even better. But just it boils down to this absurd, hilarious conversation between Samuel L. Jackson and Craig T. Nelson.
They made me a white guy.
You're not, you're tan-ish.
I mean, I'm sure the prince just faded. I love how Mr. Incredible is just the ever optimistic one in the room.
That's the thing I love. At the end of the day, I think Mr. Incredible and Frozen are kind of like the Cap and Falcon, but just even more hilarious. That's kind of what they are at the end of the day. It's kind of
right.
What their dynamic. Of course, it boils down to this ridiculous point of like, "Did you okay the rabbit? I had nothing to do with the rabbit." Just that's hysterical. We can go that all day.
So I guess with that, let's get into who is Bud Lucky Dragon. Can we kind of go through this quickly because we basically did a whole podcast on it back
just like
months ago.
Just like 2 bullet points for the whole Boundin.
Okay.
So in Boundin, of course, is a personal story for Bud Lucky, being from Montana. It's all him. He did all the research and everything on this, the banjo music. It's pretty much just a one-man short, which is very impressive. Then there's the Who is Bud Lucky feature. The main thing to talk about is that I remember this feature blew my mind on the significance of one man. I mean, the guy who designed Woody and did the short all by himself practically, and gave me an insight to who this guy was. And of course, I love how close it is to the NSA files. Like right after then, you get the
right. It's like, oh man, I think I'm gonna really discover something crazy now.
And originally, the idea they pitched was that Rick Dicker was going to introduce Bounding, like grab like a thing of gin and then play the banjo for Boundin. That was
oh my god, that would have been amazing.
Okay, so this won't go by real fast. So we have Easter eggs, galore of Easter eggs here, folks. So we have
okay. Now I assume these are the icons that you click on the DVD. It's been a while since I've navigated DVD.
So folks, I don't know if you remember this. So folks, when you're on the DVD menu, this is the cool thing here. We're just not going to go over this in any particular order. We're just going to go about them because all of these are on the DVD. You can find them. Basically, a little Omnidroid will pop up periodically, as like a minute or like maybe 30 seconds goes by. A little Omnidroid will pop up in the corner. Use your DVD remotes to go to the corner and click the Omnidroid, and a little Easter egg will play for you. Pixar has been known for their Easter eggs, and of course, this is like the creme de la creme of like probably the most 10 Easter eggs on the DVD.
Oh wow!
Technically 11, but let's just face it, there's 10. Right? I think they include.
Okay, so let's see. So we get just to kind of go quickly through them. We have the sock puppet recreation of the movie, which was ridiculous.
I love the briefcase gag. Briefcase. The thing won't drop out of the thing, and they
we have a storyboard of the this little rat is guilty.
Yes, we fill in the blanks for while Bernie is freaking out over the tack on his chair. No one will give you any guff.
Let's see. We have Bob dancing, which is a personal favorite of mine, just because of how simple it is.
Yes. This one you didn't see. There was a Dave Mullins eating the cake. When they used the Bob eating the cake in the movie, Dave Mullins, he shot some reference footage of him eating a whole cake, and they mentioned this in the commentary, and they actually they used the track from the commentary, and they showed the actual footage of him eating the cake.
Nice.
That was one. Let's see. Buttons and doors.
Oh, this was funny. Just basically, long story short for folks, this movie contains a crap ton of buttons and a crap ton of doors.
And again, it's a feature that it encapsulates the whole fantastic and the mundane of like closing doors and pushing buttons, but all these epic explosions. Let's see. Beyond that, okay. So we had these two things with these guards. Basically, Angus MacLean, he animated a guard who, when Dash was punching, basically was punched off of the rig before it exploded. The guy he punched Dash off the rig, and he did a little victory dance before he blew up. I was standing there messing around. They showed this to Brad. Said, okay, it's very funny, but obviously it's not going to make it in the movie. Okay, guys, moving on. Then I had Victor Navarro. He did another guard joke, where basically he did like 7 takes of Bob like throwing a coconut to knock out the guard who fell, which he made into the movie. But we saw all these funny alternate takes. Like the last one, which is the funniest. Guard falls, and these other guard like calls over help. It's just, why?
God,
he's crying over his buddy. really impactful when we teased earlier. Frank and Ollie, they get a little segment where basically Brad Bird explains the significance of.
Greg, and I definitely remember going out of my way to make sure I found this as a kid. I actually remember being kind of peeved that it was an Easter egg and not just a straight up bonus feature.
Well, again, made on the commentary, so it's
yeah, for sure.
So, it's sweet to say. The most impactful thing for me, he had this great line about at the end of it where he said, it was sweet that it's really sweet that he was able to see themselves make the leap from 2D as they were in Iron Giant to 3D in The Incredibles. So these old school animators were able to be realized in 3D animation, which is really nice. There's this really hilarious thing where Tony Facioli knocks a guy over by throwing a giant rubber ball at a guy on a scooter, because always guys on scooters at Pixar, because that's how they get around. Clocked him with a giant, just threw. He fell over and everything. It was hilarious. Last thing, Markisms. They're called Markisms. Basically, it's Mark Andrew owning the story room. All these quick Mark Andrew gags. It's really funny where he pulls out a glass and he shatters a shot glass and he then pulls out the bottle of alcohol. It's funny. Anyway, so those are all the Easter eggs, and then we have I think some of your favorite stuff here towards the tail end here.
Yeah, we have the publicity stuff, which is basically it's a series of interviews that the characters give, specifically Bob, Helen, and Frozone, and Edna. We have Edna, who's probably the best interview of them all.
Yes. So again, just let's meld them all together here to save time here. So it's a fun meta idea that I just love this great meta idea where basically the Pixar made a well-animated biopic about the Incredibles, about their life. And I think it's so clever. And Bob's complaining about he has issues with the weight, them exaggerating his weight issues, and they're still waiting on a check. And the legal department, he has issues with the weight, and the girl has issues with the mirror scene where she's accentuated a little below the equator.
Sure.
And Frozone owns his interview like he's Luke Cage, and I love it.
Yeah.
He's so cool, and of course, the ending is what gets me. It's oh my god, that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. We just, basically, if you want to see Frozone in action, you got to be somewhere that needs justice, and you know how to spell justice. Just ice. Oh my god, that's so perfect. And Edna, they actually did a lot of this. The way they did the interview here, they did it with Edna for the Oscars. She actually presented the Oscar for costume design with Pierce Brosnan at the 2005 Oscars.
Nice.
Okay, so let's talk about the big one. I know you've been waiting to get to this one, Tiki. So
yeah, I mean, look, it's the teaser trailer, so it's not exactly a big monumental. You can only find it on the DVD. However, Dragon, I love how this teaser trailer sets up the tone, sets up the ambiance, sets up the story, sets up the struggle, sets up the characters, all in 2 minutes, and all basically being a gag, a fat joke. It's how does Pixar do that, A? And B, why don't they keep doing that? Dragon, I miss the Pixar teaser trailer so much.
Of course, Monsters, Inc. and Nemo. Of course, Finding Nemo, and a lot of times they take an animation test and they kind of add a little out of context story to it. And here's what impressed me looking at the teaser trailer again, Tiki, looking at the teaser. I love it's really fascinating when you think about it. They had the confidence that allows for this level of build where they know this is not going to reflect what's in the final movie. This, again, it's funny. It reflects an idea of the movie, the fantastic and the mundane, basically a mundane twist on the suit up for a superhero. But again, what they're presenting, Bob being called in he's still an active superhero, and being called in the Incrediphone, which I love the Incrediphone. I actually bought an Incrediphone, by the way.
Oh, really? Did you?
I do have it because it's for a while it was the closest thing to the Bat Hotline. And it was the Incredibles, and I love the phone. And from this teaser, I remembered it. It's not used in the movie at all. We're going to use it in Incredibles 2, hilariously enough. But the fact is, again, this whole idea he'd be called for help, and he showed up, and so again, we see a variation of Bob's office where all the poster art is of him in the red Incredible suit, not in the classic Mr. Incredible suit from his glory days. The point is, they have the confidence to go with this, knowing that if folks buy into this, they knew that, okay, even if folks really go gaga for this, we're going to throw something at them that's 20 times better than this. and they're gonna love it because again, it was fun what they had here, but knowing that okay, we're gonna do a full movie, it's not gonna be exactly what they saw here because it's a teaser,
Sure,
it's just
sure.
an animation test, it's a glorified animation test, but it's just gonna give like a flavor of what the movie is. We're gonna trust our audiences. We're gonna say they're smart enough to realize okay, this isn't gonna be what the movie is, but it's kind of the feel for the movie. And of course, my favorite of the gags in this, I love that he's all these cuts is really well edited, like all these cuts of him trying to squeeze into the utility belt. I love that he's just looking at the belt for a moment where it's like on the floor. I'm trying to figure this out.
I actually specifically remember being in the theater and hearing like all the kids in the theater just going absolutely nuts over the belt gag.
Yeah.
All right.
So I guess just kind of final reflections, just kind of like any lasting hype going into Incredibles.
Yeah, Dragon, before I start, I want to apologize. Like I said, man, this is going to be the last time we do a 1 a.m. start time because, man, my energy is just shot. And it's not because of the Incredibles. It's just because it's been a long day. I've been hosting Friends. So it's like, don't worry, man. Like this isn't going to be a reoccurring thing with me. But with the Incredibles themselves, I just, I feel like the bonus features almost just kind of speak to themselves. I feel like we could just sit here and read off what the bonus features are and it'd be impressive in its own right. Of course, the fact that we got to talk about all of them, very good, very high on my podcasting bucket list. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with like half of it. But if you want your podcasting bucket list, I have this little number right here. And then yeah, that's I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think you were going to list off some other like things in the podcast bucket list, but we still got to add to it, so it's
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was like gonna go off of the podcast bucket list, but then I realized I don't have anything off the top of my head, and that just goes to prove how tired I am, Dragon. God damn. All right, send us off.
Okay, so for me, it's a very strong exploratory DVD experience. It's the most film focused and film intensive of the Pixar DVD releases. It's so much so they included all of it and even cooler features on the Blu-ray re-release. And I won't go through all the features. Let's just say they do like a round table that is amazing. It has stories that blew my mind. I was laughing so hard and was so entertained and informed by. And the Happy Birthday Gary story, which I think I've gone over before, but one of these days, basically if there's some other occasion, we'll go over like maybe some additional, like maybe like a mini thing on like kind of the Blu-ray stuff that they have there. So point is, we might go through that someday. Who knows? The point is, at the end of the day, going into Incredibles 2 from this, the kind of hype into Incredibles 2 is considering the same talent and the same passionate people that we got to know through this DVD, through these bonus features, through the experience of the first Incredibles movie, are returning. I have the utmost faith that the sequel will be what a sequel should be. It'll be a fulfilling sequel that will at least measure up. Probably won't replace the original. I'm not saying it can't, but I'm just saying traditionally sequels, you're always going to have fondness for the original at the end of the day.
It's going to be, yeah. I mean, because the original came about like in a really important time in my life, and certain characters really connected to me in the original. So,
yeah, I mean, I saw the first Incredibles with my father. It's a thing.
Exactly, right.
Of course, the next one's coming out around Father's Day. So it's kind of full circle that way.
All right.
So anyway, it probably won't measure up to the original, if not. Definitely, it'll be a good continuation. So, Incredibles 2 I think is in good hands again, based on the fine folks that worked on the original. I've got to know here. So again, can't wait for it. And again, Incredibles 2004 DVD release, 2005 DVD release. It's excellent. Feature in filmmaking.
Okay, well, thanks for watching us, folks. We will definitely be doing more Incredibles talk this week. On Thursday, we're going to be talking about our first impressions, and that's going to be spoiler free for the Incredibles 2. And then on Sunday, we'll be doing a full-blown spoiler cast for the Incredibles 2. So stay tuned for both of those. And in the meantime, stay super, darling. Stay super.
Yes.